It's okay, it's okay right where I am, right? It's okay right where you are. So it all started with my cat, Cricket. Well, it really started a little bit before Cricket, and I had found my pendulum. And so I started asking it all kinds of questions. And I finally got brave enough to ask it the question, am I going to have a third partner? And I got to tell you, that thing, without even missing a beat, it just, no, no. I asked at least 4 times, no. So I decided, that was okay. I've had 2 long-term marriages. I've been very blessed. Really don't need to be greedy. So I kind of settled in with the news and decided it was going to be me and the cats. So I have 2 cats, one of them Cricket, who is an extremely introverted kitty, and who I got from a home that had, I think, at least 3 kids and 3 dogs and a bunch of cats, and she was overwhelmed, so they sent her to assisted living, which was my house. The other cat is Scampers, who was my mother's cat before she made her transition. And so I adopted Scamper. So, I was really getting into this, that it was just going to be, me and the cats. And it was kind of in this 3 Musketeers kind of attitude, consciousness, that it happened. You see, Cricket sleeps with me at night. The other one doesn't, but Cricket does, because she's the primary cat. So Cricket, I was petting her and saying goodnight, and she bit my hand. And I was really surprised, but what I was really surprised at was my reaction. And I literally went into fetal position on the side of my bed and put my hands like this and was just like so hurt and rejected. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, oh my gosh. And it took about 5 minutes or so before I finally simmered down. And I'm like, that this is not about the cat. And I knew that I had been triggered once again into an old feeling of rejection. Well, what I'm sharing with you today is just this journey that lasted about a week. Well, and it continues on, but the next night, what was so interesting is that I noticed that I didn't just react. And what I did was I became a witness, and except for those first few moments. And I just became really curious about why I was really suffering. And coincidentally, about a week ago, well, back up. In that moment, what I usually do is I ask the angels for help. So I was asking for help, and then it popped in my brain this podcast that I had just heard that said you should not ask your angels for help. And so it was because when you ask your angels for help, you're really acknowledging separation. And that the whole point was to remember that everything is within you so that you don't go outside yourself looking for what you're needing. So I processed that, and then I went to the Science of Mind textbook. And on page 398, here it was, Dr. Holmes, our founder. This is what he says. God is all in all, over all and through all. There can be no greater or more complete allness. This allness is within us. It is necessary to understand this, else sometimes we shall be trying to reach outside, and this is impossible. So I got very clever. I started coming up with different ways to ask for help. So instead of, so it came out, it would be like, divine consciousness of Connie. Highest part of Connie, please shine the light where I need to see something, or dearest angels within me. Um, and the practice turned out to be very good, because after a couple of days of doing that, I really got in the habit of seeing that indeed everything was within me. It really was true. And this, it was just pretty exciting that I didn't really have to look outside myself. And then that brought up the idea about the committee. Do you guys remember the committee? Did you have that? I think it was a 60s or 70s thing. But we all had that committee that was just basically always criticizing us and you know, well, not only did I remember that within me, the committee, but I even remembered who they were. So I'm going to tell you my committee. There is my controlling parent. For the love of God, can you ever get it right? There is my abandoned inner child, who just always felt lonely and rejected. My fearful victim, who always made me feel hopeless and helpless. My unkind critic, whether it was a teacher or a peer, always judging me and comparing me, and of course I always came up less than. And then one of my favorites, Miss Over-Responsible, who always made me feel that not only were all the problems in the world my fault, but that it was my responsibility to fix them. Why am I a minister? And finally, there was the angry fighter, who was just like, for the love of God, can't you see who I really am, right? So this was my board of directors, and what was interesting was that I was not even the president of the board. I was the secretary. I was just taking the notes so I could use them to criticize and punish me. And you know, but I really got this insight that I don't think the committee was there really to make my life miserable. I really think it was some archaic belief that if they were trying to make me vigilant and protect me from getting hurt. And I think that was really what the goal was. It's just that it truly backfired, and it just left me feeling pretty much overwhelmed and incompetent. And I wanted to share a story with you because you should know this about me. So this is how Miss Over-Responsible showed up just last week. So I was having a dinner party for two friends who I had just listed their house for sale. And they were saying, you know, how difficult it was for them to keep the house tidy in case somebody wanted to come and look at it. And I said, oh, well, you know, it's interesting because every night before I go to bed, I automatically let you know a tape is running. I automatically and methodically go from room to room and put everything away. So the dishes are done and put away, and all the pillows are fluffed on the sofas. My bedroom, everything's hung up, buttoned up, folded up, put away. Kitty box is cleaned out. The sinks are clean. You know, all of that is all squared away. And my dinner guests thought that was really odd. And I thought it was really odd that they thought it was odd because I have been doing it forever. And they said, well, why do you do that? And without thinking, it just flew out of my mouth. Because the general might show up. Okay? So I don't know if there's any military brats or any military in the room. Don, I think you might be the only one I saw this morning. Well, okay, well, for any of you who are, you might relate to this. So you see, my dad was a colonel in the United States Army. And he required that everything be in ship shape. ship-shape condition before we went to bed. And in the morning, everything had to be put away, pajamas. Do you still tuck your pajamas under your pillow? Okay, everything put away, toothbrush, all that, because living in assigned quarters on a military base, the general would occasionally and randomly and unannounced show up. It was supposed to be like a social call, but not. It was really there so he could inspect and make sure everything was in order. And another lesson will be when the efficiency expert showed up with him. So I am 76 years old, and I'm prepared for the general. And you guys, it is for real. I watched this morning, made my bed, and I'm like, oh my God, you're doing it even right now when you're aware of all this. And, it's become so automatic that it's just unconscious, which led me to the next curious thing. So these behaviors, and, some of them are reactions to old wounds or whatever, but these old behaviors, I realized that they're still pretty much there, buried unconscious most of the time, except when a cat bites my hand, but that generally they're pretty much alive and well. And what was curious, though, was that while the stories remained, the old board members weren't there. Somehow, quietly, over the last 40 years, they have just kind of marched away with no big fancy retirement party or anything. They left the building. And the memories, the stories, while they've remained, and we realized from the Costa Rica trip that they never go away, they just become the tapestry of your life. Remember the tapestry of your life? So the stories all stay there, but what changes is how we relate to them. And that's what changed. Because when cricket bit me, I didn't go into criticism and blame. I went into curiosity. And I realized that when I called out to the angels for help, it was as if my call had been automatically transferred to a new inner voice. And I discovered that those old critical board members had been replaced by a new stewardship council. And yes, they are stewards. They're here to support, to teach, to guide me. They're not here to criticize and belittle me. And so in that moment of rejection, I was transferred to my inner guru. And my inner guru told me that they felt my feeling of rejection and wanted me to know that it was just a tragic experience of an unmet need to be included and to be appreciated. And that while, everyone's doing the best they can, that sometimes we fall short, and that's just the way it happens. And what it turned out was that the cat bite was not here to punish me or to hurt me. It was here to show me how important belonging and inclusion really are. And when I got that, I had to look at poor Cricket, who for 4 days, literally, you guys, I had been rejecting to punish her. I really was. And the minute I got it, everything was healed. I had been rejecting her because I had felt rejection. And, just as a side note, I looked up, I Googled what it means when a cat bites you. It's affection and playfulness. Yeah, see how your lens, remember Dr. Gin Wright, 4 pivots? There was the lens, took it right up and ran with rejection. So then, knowing I had this inner guru, And now, Scarlett, we're ready because I'm going to introduce to you my new Stewardship Council. Okay? I hope I'm not in the way. If I stand here, am I in the way? Okay. So first up, besides my inner guru, who is always showing me the high road, the high path, giving me the good lesson, there is my inner cheerleader. And she is always cheering me on and telling me, and this is my new mantra, don't worry, Connie, you know everything always works out for you. Then there's my loving parent who always makes me feel safe and loved, wanted and included. I hope they're popping. Yeah. They're popping. Thank you, Crystal. She figured this out for me. Then there's my loyal best friend. Connie, I'm always here for you, and I accept you exactly the way you are. Then there's my happy child. And she's always in wonderment. She has curiosity and no judgment. And then, my mighty warrior. She is always in Wonder Woman pose, and just there is nothing you can't do because I am the power behind you and I'm brave. So it's interesting how my happy child replaced my abandoned child. My loving parent replaced my controlling parent. My mighty warrior replaced my angry fighter, and my inner cheerleader replaced my unkind critic. After I wrote this, I realized I didn't address Miss Responsible because she's still here. Oops. But what I am realizing is this is why my life works so much better for me now. You know, all the practice and everything we do here every Sunday, or all the time, all of this has been upgrading this counsel that is within me, and all this wisdom is right here, and all I have to do is ask for it. Jesus said, "You do not have because you do not ask." So I have appreciated my new stewardship council, and all that happened to bring about this change was really worth it. So why am I telling you this? Well, I just thought maybe you might want to check in with your board and see who's calling the shots. Are you able to be a witness and watch? Watch and feel what's happening in your life? Can you accept it right where it is? And you know, exactly where it is exactly right, because that's what brought you here this morning. That's why we're all here together. When we practice self-reflection and exploration as a witness, we learn to observe and learn, grow and transform. And having the right team members is vital. Now, if you want to show my gears. Not that one. The committee. That one. Okay. So it's really important to have not only the right members, but that each one has their own function, and that together, when they bring their gear to the next person's gear, you get a very well-oiled machine. And that's how you create inner harmony. That's step one. You see, your consciousness affects your environment. Your consciousness affects your community. And their consciousness affects you too. This is why it's so important, because this is how we connect and evolve. And when we get together and each one of you has a really good board, and we come together and all of our gears start meshing, this is when we create something that is greater than we are individually. This is the 1 + 1 is 3, okay? This is how we glide from me to we. This is how we make a world that works for everyone. So now, I'm sure you're pretty familiar with everything I've shared so far. But now I want to give you the exciting part. And this is what Ernest Holmes knew would happen, that science would back up all of the principles that we believe. And so I'm going to share very briefly, I promise, it will not be painful, a few of the laws that support what I've been talking about. So first up is the universal law of resonance. And I was going to show a video, but I decided I can explain it easier. So you have two tuning forks, both tuned to the same pitch. When you hit this one starts to vibrate. Okay? This is how it actually works, and this is how we affect each other. The science is important. And, you know, the upcoming book we're going to read, A Happy Pocket Full of Money, the first 4 chapters, that will give you the science behind all of our metaphysics. It will blow your mind. Basically, everything is energy, and it's in a constant state of vibration. Those vibrations create a frequency that has different speeds. Now, what is important is that the vibratory frequencies are influenced by thoughts, actions, behaviors, and emotions. So can you show the pyramid? You see, this is how we change our thinking, change our lives, change our world. Because some of those lower vibrations, you know, like guilt and shame, 20 and 30, all the way up to love and joy, which are up to 540. The higher your elevated thought, the higher your frequency, that's how you're affecting someone else. And it is directly linked with the law of attraction. Because what you put out, you bring in. Because that's where you're vibrating. And when 2 or more objects come together, they'll both be putting out their own resonance. But here is the cool thing. I'm going to read it so I get it right. The body with the stronger resonance will always bring the body with the weaker resonance to match its vibration. So why is that important? Well, when your inner committee is working well, and your frequency is high, and you're acting from love, you not only put that out, but you lift them to that vibration. Last week, Centers for Spiritual Living had our conference in South Carolina, and Reverend Elijah Christopher was there, and he shared another universal law. It's called the law of synthesis. So check this out. Anytime 2 seemingly different or opposing ideas are brought together, anytime 2 seemingly different or opposing ideas are brought together, a third higher idea can be created that does not compromise either of the original 2. That's how we come together uniquely and yet continue to elevate as we come together. And that absolutely supports the law of synergy, which is the sum total of all parts is greater than the individual parts. The output is greater than the input. Y'all got that? You already knew it. Okay, you're up here next week. But what these laws, this is what these laws are telling us, okay? That together we are all greater than we are individually. That the whole is indeed greater than the sum of its parts. When you're lifted, you lift others, and we all lift the whole system. So there, I'm going to read you a quote from A Happy Pocket Full of Money. And I'm going to try to read it slowly. A shift on one part of that massive field of energy ripples on and causes shifts in the parts next to it. And they cause shifts in the parts next to them, and that ripple goes on forever. Can you imagine that? Your smile changes the composition of the entire universe scientifically. Your anger does the same. And of course, everything ripples back out in reaction, sending it back to you, all multiplied. All the laws are right there. The betterment of one individual in the system causes betterment in the whole system, causes betterment in the individual. We are interdependent. We need each other. When we interact, we experience oneness. And I'd like to close with a poem by Rabbi Elliot Bernstein that my daughter, Rabbi Lisa, shared with me this week. I sought my God I could not see. I sought my soul eluded me. I sought my fellow man, and I found all three. Thank you for sharing my journey. Namaste. Thank you so much. And now I would like to invite Scarlett out fresh from the sound booth up on the stage.